Hello, everybody, and welcome back. I am really excited to be here today. I am here with Mahara Wayman, and we are going to be talking about the Trinity Within, the Shadow Queen, the Inner Critic, and the Divine Guide. Mahara is a certified mastery method coach, Akashic Reader, and founder of the Mindfulness with Mahara. She helps high-achieving women reclaim their power by confronting the Shadow Queen, transforming the Inner Critic, and awakening the divine guide so they can lead with soul and not performance. So this is going to be a incredibly juicy conversation, kind of where woo meets winning a little bit is what I'm kind of getting from this. So I am very, very excited to have you on today.
Awesome. I'm so happy to be here. This is exciting too.
Yes, tell us. So I kind of read a little bit of a bio, but like give us the deep and dirty background of who you are and kind of how you got into this.
Deep and dirty. What a great opportunity. Okay, so first off, I have spent most of my life pretending. I've always been very happy, but I always did what I thought other people thought I should do. So I've done lots. I've been an entertainer. I've been a sales rep. I've been a caterer. My most recent experience was in the corporate world. I worked for a global health and wellness company for about 12 or 13 years, I think, and I loved it. But I was really faking it then. So one day I had a wake-up call with my daughter, actually. She kind of called me out on the carpet for some behavior that I thought was quite acceptable. I turned my back on her while she was talking so I could answer an email because, I was corporate and emails were more important than my daughter. What a load of shit. So that was the beginning of a wake-up call for me where I began to question, wait a second, I seem so successful and yet I feel so miserable. And it's not that I had the great house. I have a beautiful home. You can see it behind me. I have a beautiful family and I was doing really well in my work, but something was missing. And I realized I was working so hard to be that successful woman that I was beginning to ignore what was more important to me, my values, my family, my kids, even my health, which is kind of funny because I work for a health and wellness company. But I kind of fell into the fakeness of that whole got to look a certain way, got to feel a certain way. And when COVID hit, I saw that as the beginning of the end for me. And I was so excited. A year into COVID, I was invited to leave the company and I did a happy dance. And I was the only one that was happy. My family were like, fuck, you lost your job. I'm like, oh, they thought I'd lost my mind. So I began at that point investigating what I really wanted. I knew I wanted to make a difference in the world. I loved the coaching component of being with this company. And I also loved the challenge of leadership because when I left the company, I was the lead territory manager for half of Canada. So I had worked my way up in the ranks. But when all is said and done, I was on a path of self-discovery. And I say that now with a little bit of a smile because at the time I didn't know that. At the time I was just like, oh, I want to do this. By the way, to my husband, I'm going to spend $4,000 US on a course to learn how to be an online coach. I burst into tears because can't believe I was scared to tell him actually. He looked at me like I'd lost my mind because, oh my God, we have never spent that kind of money on anything, much less an online course. So it was a big wake-up call for me. And I went through a lot of iterations of who I wanted to be as a coach. And I'm so excited that through much trial and error, I have found myself here in this beautiful room, recognizing my gifts. And I'm not embarrassed to talk about it anymore, right? So I'm not willing to sit back and pretend to be any other coach other than who I am, which is I wear pink sometimes. I wear Dave Matthew Band t-shirts other times. I swear when I feel like it. Thanks to my friend Mackenzie Morris, I even renamed one of my podcasts with a swear word in it. And oh my God, I have a story to tell you about that. But in a nutshell, that's my journey.
I love it. That is such an incredible journey. And I think a lot of people that are listening here will hear themselves in your story because who hasn't ignored their children for an email? Who hasn't said, okay, babe, give me 1 minute and let me finish this. Let me finish what I'm doing. And 30 minutes later, you're still doing it, right? We all can totally identify with that. So we feel very, very seen. And thank you for sharing that. And that can be hard, especially from a performance standpoint, when you feel like you're a leader and you want to be a professional and you want to be the best version of yourself, but at what cost? And that's kind of what the story that you shared was about. So tell me, what is an Akashic Reader? Tell me what that means.
Okay, so the Akashic Records, there is an understanding that every soul has a record, and there is a place, think of it as primordial soup. There's a cache of energy, or a library where the records of every soul are kept. And this would be past lives, current lives, future lives. So I have been trained to access the Akashic Records, and everybody has access to them. First of all, let me just say that it's not like only a handful of people. As souls, we all have access to the Akashic Records. Most of us don't know that. So I am very intuitive. That was one of the big things that I was willing to embrace in this last year. And my intuition has led me to this modality. So really, we say a prayer, we ask for permission to enter the records. And for me, I see pictures and I hear voices. What I hadn't realized at the time was that my intuition was so strong as a coach. It was coming out all the time. So whether I formally access somebody's records or I just trust my intuition, it's still the same feeling of messages from another plane. And I don't want to sound crazy woo-woo, because I'm not. I'm actually very, very, I feel I'm very normal, right? I mean, I've always looked at psychic readings as a form of entertainment and nothing more all my life, right? And anything that I experienced was just fodder for party talk. Oh my God, did I tell you the time that I saw a ghost? Oh, that was so funny. Oh my God, let me tell you about the time this happened. But then I realized it was part of my coaching. It's actually part of my life. I'm always feeling things. I'm very intuitive. Now I just have a name for it. Did I answer your question about the Akashic Records?
So tell me what the records are. You said anyone can access them. So tell me, if I were to access the records, what kind of information would I find?
Depends what you ask. So it's interesting because it's very much like coaching. You ask a great question and you'll get the answers. It's not like flipping through an index card at your local library, but it's tapping into your higher self, into something greater than yourself. So typically when I go into records, whether it's my own or someone else's, I will ask for the guides and the leaders there of this particular person to share with us what she or he most needs to know based on a question. So sometimes people will come to me like, this is just fun. What do you see? Other times they'll be like, I'm really struggling with X. So we will ask of the records something pertaining to that. So it's kind of a bit of everything.
That is crazy. So this is something that you have to do in person, right? You can't do something like that virtually.
Oh, no.
Energy, right? Or no?
I've done both. And I actually I spend so much of my time on Zoom. I have no problem giving readings or coaching over Zoom, for sure.
Well, that is seriously so cool. I have never heard of the records. This concept has never been brought to my attention. So I am loving all of this. This is just so interesting to hear about. So tell me, how does that relate to the method mastery coaching that you do, and then the Trinity within ourselves? How does it all come together?
Okay, well, here's the thing. I'm going to be really brutally honest. Growth is growth, and there's many different ways that we can frame it and different words that we can use it. So whether I'm a certified mastery method coach because I went through a program that's what it's called. But within that program, it was a year-long certification. I learned multiple methods to help my clients: somatic, emotional, behavioral, mental, unconscious.
So cool.
I've got tools that help me access and support clients all of those ways. So that's the mastery method component. That was the first.
That is crazy. That is very cool.
It's so cool. Akashic Records, I consider that as part of just really fine-tuning my own intuition. I'll tell you how it came about. I was working with a mentor whose mandate is to help her clients find their genius code. What makes you so good at whatever you do? And so she said to me, Mahara, how come you're such a good coach? And I said, fuck if I know.
You have said that before. I know I have. I know I have.
But she really pushed me. She's like, no. What makes you special? What do your clients say to you afterwards? And so I thought about it. It took a while, actually. And I realized that one of the biggest common threads through all of my feedback is, wow, how did you know to say that? Where did that come from? And as I'm coaching people, I just have a thing, oh, I need to tell her this. And I will say it. And I'm like, in my head, I don't know where that came from, because it's not necessarily obvious based on the level the conversation has taken us. But they'll say, oh my God, you nailed it. How did you do that? And I'm like, I don't know. So I realized that my intuition was really playing a part in my coaching already. And that is what allowed me, or what pushed me to investigate more. So I worked with somebody on developing my intuition, and I had a really big aha moment as to why it was so hard for me to recognize this. I've always been intuitive, and like I said earlier, I treated it kind of like a parlor game. But there was an incident, an experience when I was young, 19, that scared the shit out of me. And it was very traumatic, and it was very sad. And I had forgotten. All these years later, we're talking 40 years later, 39 years later, I remembered that that had kind of pushed me away from ever really developing it. And once I realized that, then I was fine. I'm like, oh, wow, that's interesting. Oh my goodness. Wow. Okay. You know what? I don't need to be afraid of it anymore. That was then, that just was, it's no big, I don't want to say it's not a big deal, but I don't need to use that as an excuse to not develop it further. So I've been constantly working on it. That's why I fell into and found out about the Akashic Records. And the Trinity Within is something that I have come to develop in recent months, in the last 6 months, based on my tuning into my intuition, asking questions of my own Akashic Records, and just coming up with what I know has worked for me. And it's a reflection of my own journey. So in a nutshell, you mentioned them earlier. I believe that we all have this Trinity. The Shadow Queen, she is the version of us that actually knows how great we are. And she's the one that comes out when we have been told to be quiet, you're too much, what are you thinking? She may seem very bossy, but she actually has a very clear understanding of who we are and what our abilities are. That's the Shadow Queen. Our Inner Critic, I think most people are very familiar with that term because it's talked about a lot. She's the younger version of us, typically younger version, who feels like she's kind of a bitch, and she's always criticizing us. What are you thinking? You can't do this. That doesn't look good on you. You're not good enough, thin enough, fast enough, smart enough, funny enough, whatever enough. So inner critic's very common. And the one that I've been working on, part of me that I've been working on the most recently, as I mentioned earlier, is my divine guide. Our divine guide, we all, she's our intuition. She's that quiet whisper that says, don't go there, or you got this. And my work embraces all three, because I truly believe that when we can identify and work with and give voice to all those different parts of us, we can have a successful life with less stress. We can tune into our intuition and feel powerful about it, not ashamed about it. We can change our relationship with our inner critic so we don't bash her. We recognize where she came from, and she can just kind of tone it down a bit. We listen to her, but we don't give her the mic. We wave to her, but we don't give her the keys to the car. Does that make sense?
Yes, I really love the names you've given to each of these Trinity. I'll call them people, maybe. I love the Shadow Queen. So am I right in understanding her, how you said that she's kind of the bossy one? She knows your greatness. She knows your innate magic. So is she the one that kind of comes in and slashes down all the negative self-talk whenever that kind of comes up?
100%. 100%. Now, I have some clients where the Shadow Queen has taken center stage, but she's become too vocal, and it's to a detriment, right? Most of my clients aren't that way. And I wasn't that way. I'm not that way. She comes out every now and then, but most people, as I said earlier, it's the inner critic that they're most familiar with, because that one holds us back so much. And I didn't even realize that I had an inner critic until my best friend pointed it out years and years ago. And I'm like, well, I didn't even know I was saying that. She's like,
can you give us an example of, well, you've kind of given us some for the inner critic and the divine guide. I don't know why I'm feeling so pulled to the Shadow Queen. Maybe I've got my queen popping out in here, but can you give us an example of what it would look like if the Shadow Queen is kind of taking over a little bit?
Sure. The Shadow Queen, here's an example of her taking over. You're in a meeting and your inner critic is saying, don't speak up. You don't have it right. Just, cool your jets. And all of a sudden you put your hand up or you slam your fist down and go, you know what? I'm done with this. For the love of God, why aren't you listening to me? Seriously, people, come on. Like, back up a bit. That's not what I said. So she's the forthright one. And yeah, I mean, she's not wrong. She's not wrong, but she's the one she's been in the background and she's been quieted and she's accepted that for long enough. And every now and then she'll pop out and be very visible. And the inner critic is like, fuck, there she comes. God, Jesus.
There she goes again.
Our divine guide is like, okay, I'll just sit back and let this play out the way it's meant to, but we'll rein her in. So
Okay.
it's all about finding a balance, I think.
Yeah, that was my next question. Is the goal to find balance, or is the goal to get the divine guide to be leading the way and then being supported by your shadow queen and inner critic?
What a great question. And I think it's different for everyone. Right off the bat, all of my clients and myself agree that we need to recognize the inner critic for who she is, because she tends to be the loudest. I work with people that aren't happy with where they're at, right? So if you're happy with where you're at, you found a way to navigate your inner critic. So that's not my ideal client. So typically we'll spend a lot of time understanding, listening, and changing our relationship to the inner critic. If you were looking at it visually, as the inner critic's voice comes down, the divine guide's voice it's not that it gets louder, it's just that you're hearing it. So it is finding a balancing act, and everybody's different. Some people may want and really treasure their higher self, their divine guide, to be precious and just keep it to themselves, whether they choose to follow the wisdom or not. Other people may really want, and their personality is such that the shadow queen is like, hey, babe, I'm here all the way, back the fuck up, make room. It doesn't matter. We all have our own personality. So the goal isn't necessarily balance, because that may not be the thing, or the goal may be to just really understand. And there are times that the inner critic has served us. And in fact, it's always served us. We get to choose based on our understanding now what that looks like.
Wow, that is so cool. And I'm sitting here thinking, you mentioned personality. So with these three different types, are you saying that they are also associated with your personality as well? And that they maybe make up the personality?
Well, full disclosure, I'm not a personality expert. I understand that based on, you could look at your astrological signs. That's one way to sort of get an idea of how people act, just through their astrological signs. And there's lots of different ways that people can measure personality and take personality readings. I think that this trinity is separate from personality, because
Okay.
people that are shy and still are operating with these archetypes. I refer to them as archetypes. So I believe that they're separate. Full disclosure, right? I mean, you can have an inner critic, or you can have a divine guide that lives in a bully, in a bitch, in a brassy, in a quiet. Like, the personality, I see that as being separate.
Okay, that is definitely helpful. So how would someone go about figuring out which of the Trinity is leading them throughout life? How do you go about in figuring that out? Me sitting here hearing you, I'm like, I think my Shadow Queen's kind of got it down. The Shadow Queen, and she's supported by the Divine Guide, and then I've kind of got my inner critic under control.
Well, here's the thing. We are all very intuitive if we lean into it. So the first thing I would say to anybody is, what do you think? And this is what I say with my clients. This is what they look like. Before I tell you what I see, what do you see?
Yeah.
And because there is no, whatever you see is what you see. Like, I'm not going to argue with you, right?
Right.
But it all comes down to, what do people want? And this is what I have, when the people that I work with have come to me for a specific reason. And that's where I start any investigation is, why are you here and how can I help you? What do you think is missing? What is it you want? What's going on in your world?
Wow. Okay. That is a really, really interesting. And I would really recommend to everyone that's listening here to sit and take the words that Mahara shared with us about the Trinity and see where you are feeling the most pull, and reflect back on some experiences in your life, in your business, in your family, and maybe analyze how you've reacted to those experiences. And maybe that could be a good peek into which of the Trinity is kind of leading the way, at least in that experience. It can maybe provide some sort of insight.
Love it. Absolutely. The best thing anybody can ever do for themselves is get curious. Why am I feeling this way? Oh my God, why does that person trigger me so much? Why do I feel like this whenever I see that? What is so beautiful about curiosity is that the minute we give ourselves permission to be curious, we step out of judgment and we step into a place of wonder. And so many of us have allowed judgment, our own judgment of ourselves, judgment of others, and other people to judge us. We have allowed that to really shape our lives in a way that doesn't serve us. So it's a constant reminder to clients and to my families, like, Just get curious because it feels good, right? Or think of kids. You've got young kids. Like kids are so curious and they love it. How come? I remember my girls. Mommy, how come? Why not? How come? How come? I'd lose my shit. Like because I said so. That's all you fucking need to know. I said so, right? That was when I was having, stressful day. But it does bring with it this childlike curiosity that is without judgment. I can't judge you. I'm just curious. I just want to know. So when we do that to ourselves, we can really learn a lot. Like, wow, isn't that interesting? Whenever this topic comes up in a meeting, my stomach quelches. Why is that?
I feel like so many people like to shy away from that because it's uncomfortable. It requires growth, it requires depth, it requires emotional work. And a lot of people do not like to do that. Me, for one, or I, for one, love to sit in deep thought and just have conversations and feel my feelings and figure out why. It's like going on a little journey inside myself. I see myself like walking a Candyland little yellow brick road and saying, where did this come from and why? And I think it's so cool because, like you said, the curiosity opens up the wonder. But to me, it also brings up space for connection where you can connect with yourself and you can connect with others. And I really felt this so deeply this weekend. I was at a house party. It was like 11 o'clock at night, and this guy from my husband's work came up and was talking to a group of us, and he asked this question that is like totally out of the blue, like not a regular house party question, but I freaking loved it being the person that I am. He said, what is one thing that you have done in your life that you are so overly proud of but don't get to celebrate? Like, what a great question, because not only does it prime the person up to have permission to tell a story and to take up space, but it allows the person who's telling the story to go on like a walk down memory lane and celebrate themselves and reminisce the things that they've done and share that happiness and that progress with other people. And then that also invites connection. And it was just the coolest thing to see how everyone really jived and connected and got closer just through that one question.
Such a great question. And here's the thing. The quality of your life is directly connected to the quality of the questions you ask of it. And that's all there was to it.
Yeah.
I stole that from someone. I think it may have been Tony Robbins, to be honest. That's why coaches ask questions, right? That's why I've always loved the debate club. I love to debate things, right? I don't have to be right. I just love the exploration. So asking questions is one of the best gifts that we can give ourselves. But to your point, we have been raised in a society that tells us that negative feelings are bad and you shouldn't feel that way. Why are you crying? Stop crying. Jesus, get over it. All of those voices we have grown up with. So you're right. Most of us are uncomfortable because we haven't been given permission to feel okay, that we're still safe, even though we're sad or depressed or any of those things. So it does take some courage to sit with our feelings, but it's the only way through. It's the only way through is to give space and voice to that part of us that's feeling whatever we're feeling. It doesn't mean that we have to create a story out of the feeling. And this is a really important thing that I've learned and that I share with my clients is, by all means, name the feeling. Get curious. What am I feeling and why? I say be Columbo, right? Just be a detective and state the facts. The facts are, I delivered a really shitty presentation and I'm embarrassed. Those are the facts. True story, folks, by the way. When I was first working on Zoom and figuring out the technical stuff, it was abysmal. Bad as that, but I felt it was abysmal. But what was interesting was that I began to make a story out of that. So hear me out. I did a crappy presentation. That must mean I'm in the wrong job. I don't know what I'm doing. I shouldn't be doing this. That's just a story. A new way of viewing things like that is, well, that didn't go as well as I wanted. Here's the great question. What could I have done better, Mahara, or differently? Because then my brain will say, oh, well, you could have prepared more. You could have tested it. You could have gotten your friend to help you out, whatever, versus that was awful and I suck. I just made a story out of it. So that's another really important component to this idea of sitting with your feelings, is recognizing that feel your feelings, but don't make a story out of it.
I wholeheartedly agree. And I love that you brought up the topic of voice and feelings and feeling the feelings. I think right now, especially in just the state of our world, people don't have a voice and it's really hard. And I think going through this whole process of figuring out how your Trinity is working and figuring all of that out will help you not only amplify your voice, but be more confident and secure in your voice and not be afraid to take up space. I was listening to a speaker trainer, his name is Vin, and he's incredible. And he was talking about like the concept of daring to take up 15 seconds at a networking event. Like most people would say, hi, I'm Mackenzie Morris. I am a creative marketer and visibility strategist. Done, but take the 15 seconds and add on to that and be like, but I also love Mahara and how she talks about the Trinity and the Shadow Queen and all of these things. And you can learn a lot from her. And then if you ever just want to go out and hang out and go to like a club or a rave, like I'm your girl, right? That taking up space not only gave me space maybe to celebrate somebody else, but it opened up a window to share a story, share another part of me that would allow other people to come in. And I think that that is really super cool. The other thing I wanted to share was whenever you're talking about feeling the feelings, there's this, what I call is cognitive fear recoding. It's kind of what we're doing is you feel the emotion, you feel the fear. I think everything is almost rooted in a fear. If you really go down deep, you can figure out what that fear is and you feel the fear and you learn from it. And you say, okay, I understand why I'm feeling this way. But then the next part, rather than going into the story or the lies that we tell ourselves, saying, wow, I'm terrible at my job, that was trash, blah, 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 remind yourself what is true. And don't make it mean something about you. Be like, man, I must have been exhausted today, but I'm still a badass bitch and great at my job. And then move forward through it. And just remind yourself of the actual facts, just like you had said. So I think you hit the nail freaking right on the head with all of that.
It all comes down to reprogramming, because every time we state the truth, we are creating a new neural pathway in our brain. To your point, our brain is just a giant computer. It doesn't have a sense of humor. It's just, and it's predictive. So it's going to take all of these things and go, oh, the last time this happened to Mahara, she felt like shit. Oh, Mahara, you're feeling like shit now, right? But it's up to me in the now with the knowledge that I now have to go, okay, wait a second. Yes, I am, but that doesn't mean anything.
Right.
I didn't, whatever it means, but doesn't mean I am less than or less deserving than. So it's fascinating.
It very much is. I'm going to shut the door really quickly. I apologize. My dog came busting in at the door and completely. Snow. Okay, we will do that after this call, okay? Shut the doors. Thank you. Okay, great. Shut the door. My kids made snow.
That's hilarious. How did they do that?
I don't know. So I guess I'll find out.
Video as well or just audio?
This is both.
Both. Okay. Did you hear about 10 minutes ago that you were really scratchy?
No.
Okay, I heard it on my end, but I didn't say anything because maybe it was just me. So fingers crossed.
Yeah, we'll see. And I can always have you on again. We can always do it again. Something like that. That's also fine. I'd sent a chat. I was like, it's kind of hard to hear. So I don't know. Technology is just technologying today.
Mercury's in retrograde. My astrologer told me yesterday. My best friend is an astrologer. And she's like, because I'm like, I can't get the computer to do what I wanted to do. So blah, blah, blah. So you never know.
No worries. Is there anything else that you kind of wanted to share before we kind of do like a little exit outro?
I can't think. No, I guess not.
Like, is anything coming to me in a download that needs to happen that they need to share? Okay. I want to read through everything and see if I can come up with anything. Mastermind. Okay. We will do a little outro and then I'll go and spice it all up and edit and we'll be good to go.
Sounds good.
All right. This has been a really super cool conversation, and I've just never heard of the Trinity, the Shadow Queen, the Inner Critic, and the Divine Guide. And I think it is so cool to have this conversation about intuition and shadow work and sacred strategy. And I know that you have quite a few programs and ways to work with you, and you're on social and all of those things. So tell us how we can connect with you outside of this. If we want to get some sort of support, how we can do that.
Awesome. Well, first of all, my handle is at Mindfulness with Mahara on all of the platforms. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Pinterest, you name it. I would love to offer any listener to, and I'll share it with you, Mackenzie, you can drop it in the show notes, but to access, I have a free Inner Critic. Oh, fuck me. What's it called? Now I can't even remember.
The 5-day intuition mastery.
I haven't had enough coffee this morning. So yes, if anybody's interested in developing their own intuition, then I do have a complimentary 5-day email program to help you do that. And I do have various programs. I have my ongoing program is called the Trinity Transformation, and it's a 3-week mini mastermind. First, it's a group coaching. First week is all on the Shadow Queen. The second week is on the Inner Critic. And the third week is on the Divine Guide. And we pull everything together. That's my introduction. And then I do group coaching and I have one-on-one as well. Everything is based on the Trinity. And the bottom line of the Trinity is you can create the life that you want. You absolutely can. And I'm here to help you do that.
This was so great and so interesting and such a fun and different type of conversation that I usually have here. So I'm really excited to get to bring this to my network and to the world and to everybody because this is interesting work and I highly recommend any of you guys that are interested, even remotely, if anything fired in your head, we're like, ooh, I need to learn more about this. Absolutely follow Mahara, book a discovery call with her, and go deep because learning all of these things about you is absolutely the key to having the life and the businesses that you want. So thank you so, so much for being here, and we will talk to you guys next time.